Guys, I think it's time for me to go back to the railroad. I've been thinking long and hard about it, and I think it's time for me to finally make that move. After all these years, after this really long break, I think it's time for me to go back. But you lost your mind. I'm not going back to the railroad. There's no way in a million years would I ever go back, especially during PSR railroading. But we are going to be doing some virtual railroading in Run 8, and we're going to be railroading on a subdivision that I worked on in real life, the Fitzgerald Sub. So it's one that's kind of near and dear to me and one that I am somewhat familiar with. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're in Run 8. We're on the Fitzgerald Sub, the new Fitzgerald DLC. We're currently in a little town called Gay, Georgia. If you are a Walking Dead fan, you might be familiar with that area, with Gay, with Sonoy, with Woodbury, and Harrelson. Walking Dead was filmed all in that area, so multiple locations. That was after I left the railroad, though. So, but yeah, we're on the Manchester Sub, actually. This is a Manchester Sub. It's a good portion of it is actually included with the Fitz DLC all the way up to Gay. So that's pretty cool as well, too. Also, another little secret about Spur that probably a large majority of you don't know is that I actually went to school for CG art. And I did some art for Run 8 back in the day. I actually did do some stuff. I'll post some pictures around somewhere for you to see some of the stuff I did. So all of this is kind of near and dear to me. The Run 8 and the Fitz, all that kind of stuff. So we're leaving out of Gay off the south end here. We're on a coal train. We're on a loaded coal train. It is the N17126. It is a Stanton coal train, goes down to Orlando. I think it originated up around Corbin. Coal, like, it's so fluid. That stuff, like, that could be a whole video in itself as far as how that stuff worked out. But for game purposes, this one originated up around Corbin, and we're going to take it south down to Orlando is where it's going. We've got 90 cars at 12,600 tons and change. I think it's like 12,649, maybe something like that. We've got two SD70 ACEs on the head end for a whopping 0.7 HPT. So it's a slow boat to China. It's the way it was back then. Like all our coal trains that we ran were two AC units on the head end, usually two AC 4400s because the SD70s didn't come until later. So basically on this video, what I want to do is kind of talk about what it was like back then versus now. Now, the first thing I see about this route all the time, people talking about, well, what's the time period of the route, right? The time period of this route, let's get over this DD real fast because it's kind of cool. It's actually got the recording. Pulling forward across in there. Over the defect detector. That is so cool. I love it. The time period for the route. The time period for the route is going to be 2002 to 2003. Absolute, like, set in stone. That's what it is. It's basically right after they did the double track from Rupert up to Mock on the Fitzgerald, but it's just prior to them doing the runaround track in Manchester, which is basically another little double track that they did there. They started the runaround when I was working. I'm trying to think exactly when they started that project. Maybe it was early 04, something. Let's see. I left late summer of 04, and they just had finished it. But I don't think I ever went down to runaround in Manchester. I don't think I ever did that at that point. But so yeah, the physical route structure is going to be 2002 to 2003. The speeds, though, here's the kicker, okay? The speeds are going to be 2005. Now, the reason why the track is 02 to 03 and the speeds is 05 is because the 2005 timetable is readily available to everyone, whereas some of my, like, that's my 99 right here. This is my 99 time. This is my old Jacksonville 03 timetable right here. These aren't available to anyone, so they're not online, but the 05 is. So it's 05 speeds, 2002 to 2003 route structure. I hope that clears that up. This was also pre-PSR railroading, or pure shit railroading. Yes, I said it, I'll bleep it, but that's what it is, actually. It's ridiculous. The 15,000 foot trains and stuff like that they run now is just absolutely ridiculous. But Yeah, it's pre that. It was a different time back then. I think we probably had more movements over the Fitz than they do now, just because we didn't run the big trains like they did back then, right? Like I remember 682 out of Waycross was averaging about 4,000 feet. Sometimes it was as short as 3,600, sometimes as long as 4,700. But back then it was a pretty short train. Like we ran short trains. I think Q215 was another one that was pretty short at times. You know, it varied a lot. It varied with the traffic. But yeah, it's pre-PSR railroading. We had the differences in the physical track structure. Operations, there was a lot more coal trains going to Florida back then than there are now, I think. It's just a busy time. It was a busy time on the railroad. We also, let's see, we're going into the, we're going into the 25 now. We're getting ready to start, let's see, we go down, we went down a big hill out of Gay. And then we go over a little knot there at MLAC, and then we climb the hill up into Woodbury. So we're going to be doing about 11 mile an hour into Woodbury at 0.7 HPT, which is pretty dang close to real life. Let me tell you, it's pretty close. Operations wise, if you're going to be running 0.7 HPT on the Fitz and Manchester Sub, all that stuff, it has to be AC units. DC units are not going to do it in game. They're going to downrate. They're not going, it's not going to happen. So yeah, but you can do it with AC units. Like I said, be prepared for a long trip though, if you do it like we did back in the day. So yeah, that was also a big difference. Coal trains ran 2 units. We didn't use DPU, none of that mess. It's just 2 AC 4400s. And you know, the trains varied. 84 cars for your Bostwick coal trains, 86 cars, sometimes 88 for those. You know, Crystal River trains, 90, 90-ish, Stanton coal trains, 94. They varied, but usually they're around those numbers. But, you know, 12,000 tons, sometimes upwards of 13,000 tons, something like that. Another big difference back then, despite like the no PSR and the physical differences, is the fact that Fitzgerald was a crew change point, right? I don't think it is anymore. Like I said, I'm not really up on the current day ops. I'm just not interested in it. I'm more of a historical person. So I don't think it's a regular crew change now. I think they have some jobs out of there, but I think that got consolidated with Manchester a few years back. But back then, there was a crew change in Fitzgerald. And basically the way that worked out was we had 2 routes coming in on the north end and merging together at Manchester, right? We had the Birmingham side, which was basically going to be your Birmingham traffic, Chicago traffic, Nashville, Midwest traffic, that kind of stuff. And on the Atlanta side, that would be, of course, your Atlanta trains, your Cincinnati's, Detroit's, that kind of stuff, you know. So those 2 lines would come down to Manchester and they merged together. So basically the Manchester crews handled the Birmingham stuff, and the Atlanta crew, or the Fitzgerald crews, handled the Atlanta stuff. Let's see, where are we coming up to here? This is going to be Woodbury. Yeah, we're coming around into Woodbury here. So we just topped the grade and we're picking up a little speed here going through Woodbury. So yeah, Fitzgerald crews handle the Atlanta stuff. So basically the way the pools worked out is, Manchester, we had the F2 pool to Birmingham. We had an I1 to Waycross. So any of the trains that originated on the Lineville side, we would take down to Waycross. And any of the trains on the Atlanta side, the Fitzgerald crews would run Atlanta to Fitzgerald. So that was their 205 mile pool that they had. And then they did a short pool to Waycross, and they had a pool that ran to Jacksonville and Baldwin as well too. So they would do Atlanta to Fitzgerald, Fitzgerald to Waycross, Fitzgerald to Jacksonville, Fitzgerald to Baldwin, that sort of thing. And then we did, like I said, we did just Manchester to Waycross. Later on, while I was working, they did add another pool in Manchester. It was a long pool called the Long Pool. And basically they ran Manchester to Jacksonville on 2 trains, 120 and 121. Those were the hottest trains between Atlanta and Jacksonville by far. 121 definitely was. I remember hearing people on the radio like getting threatened to be fired if they delayed 121. It was that serious back then. That's a whole other story in itself. Maybe we'll get into sometime, but yeah, so they had the long pool to Jacksonville, and that was what, 270 something miles, maybe. I think it was like 3 crews, one going down, one coming up, and then one resting. So long pool, if you feeling froggy, if you feel like you can do some serious railroading, run the long pool from Manchester to Jacksonville. Try it out on a pig. Don't stop for anyone though. You gotta go, like you gotta get on it and go. We're going by south, yeah, we're going by south end of Woodbury. We grabbed a little air. Yeah, we got a little set here going down. I think it's about a 1% grade. It'll go down and it'll kind of level out for a little bit just north of here, and then we start the climb up to Persico Hill, which is grueling grade into Persico, especially with 0.7 HPT. So yeah, that's how they ran the trains. There's a lot of pool options if you think about it. Like, I don't think a lot of people that play the game really realize, like, they feel like it has to be run end to end or something like that, and it's not. There's lots of different ways that you could run it like they did in real life. I like the you know, the Fitzgerald to Waycross pool is way different than the north end. It's completely different kind of railroading. Let's face it, the Fitz on the north end is a different railroad than it is on the south end, right? Like on the north end, it's really hilly. It's got you know, multiple 1% grades. It's got a lot of curves. It's not very fast. It's only up to 50 mile an hour in some spots. Whereas Fitzgerald South, it's a flatter railroad, even though there's some pretty extreme hogbacks down there. It's a 60 mile an hour railroad. It's just there's a few spots where it gets down to 50, but it's basically a 60 mile an hour railroad. So yeah, it's like night and day. So if you want a little quick, easy pool, or a little quick, easy job, then, you know, Fitzgerald Waycross is a good one. All right, here we are. Excuse me, I can't talk. Up under the nice little wooden bridge here. Those are really cool. They were everywhere back in the day. I think a lot of them have been torn down now, but they were all over the place back in the day. They really just were. We're getting ready to start our climb into Persico. Here's the signal at Persico. We're grinding along at 10 mile an hour. And the cool thing about Run 8 is that your engines get a little wear and tear on them, so you might run a little better on another train or a little worse. I think I've gone through here before at like 11 mile an hour, so it varies. And then of course, if it's raining and stuff like that, it may affect you too, the rain, you know, your adhesion to the rail, that kind of stuff. But we are grinding it out big time. All right, so we'll go over this little private crossing here, and then we'll go around the curve to the right and under a bridge, and that'll basically be the top of the grade for Persico. Then I think it's pretty much a 1% back down into Pigeon Creek, and then a 1% right back up into Manchester. The grades are so extreme. It's like 1% to 1%. Like there's not a lot of wiggle room at the bottom, right? And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but you're coming around to the Manchester holdout this time. So we're already going back down the hill and across Pigeon Creek and into Manchester holdout now. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but so far in this trip, I haven't used the dynamics once. Like, I am an air guy in game. I love using the air. I think it works out really good for these routes, especially on the Fitz where it's 1% to 1%, right? Like there's no wiggle room at the bottom, and I like having the throttle immediately available to me as soon as we're coming out of the sag, right? Like as soon as you're transitioning back uphill. Coming around North Manchester here, the track to the right is the new way to Birmingham. Further to the right, you can't see it, that would be the old way to Birmingham and the west siding. It's kind of a complicated area. If you look at it on Google Earth, you probably understand a little better, but it's different now than what it was back then. So you had the new way from Birmingham, you had the old way and the west siding, and then once you get under the bridge, you see A720's power sitting there. It's pretty much like it was in real life, so where they used to keep their power. You have the yard just on the other side of the bridge here and the south siding. So the runaround, what they did when they added the runaround in 2004 is they basically tied the west siding, which is off camera to the right there. They tied it into number 6 yard track in the yard there, and then took it out on the south end there. And so it basically made a double track through the yard there, a main on either side of the yard. So we're going by the yard office here. That's just a little yard tower asset that was added in. It's not like that in real life. I think actually the old depot in the dispatcher's building were actually tore down, which is an absolute total shame that they tore that down. I can't believe they did it, but nothing surprises me in PSR railroading anymore. It really doesn't. So yeah, a little 6-track yard here at Manchester. Got some cars there for 720. Could have been 592's drop off, maybe. 592 used to drop cars off there. And 544 used to work Manchester too. I can't remember if they dropped off or I think they dropped off. I think 544 dropped off cars in Manchester. I think that's how that worked. So the cool thing about the yard of Manchester there, for a little ways, for the bulk of the yard, is pretty flat. And we're right alongside Pine Mountain. Now we're climbing out by the south end of Manchester, South Manchester, and the grade's starting to pick back up to about a 1% here. So yeah, it's kind of operationally challenging in Manchester because it's a 10 mile an hour, like the Atlanta trains had that 10 mile an hour curve there, and there's the grade, and so yeah, it was pretty tough. But yeah, the Atlanta trains rolled straight through. They rolled straight through Manchester to Fitzgerald. They didn't stop there, the Atlanta stuff. But it's kind of interesting. There was some kind of agreement that they worked out for the Fitzgerald crews, the northbound guys. They were all the time going dead going into Atlanta because it was a huge cluster up there about 90% of the time. And so they worked it out where if they made it to Manchester, if they made it to Manchester or they went dead north of Manchester, then a Manchester crew would take it into Atlanta. So it seemed like for the longest time they would just do just enough to get to Manchester and then go dead, and then we would have to take it into Atlanta and deal with all that mess. That was always great. So we're coming around the curve here. We're still fighting a grade 12 mile an hour. I can't read what it's, I think it says 0.76. The video I'm watching is kind of small, so it's hard for me to read. But we're going into a place called Dunn Gap. You can see the label for it there. Dunn Gap's where we cross Pine Mountain. I want to say Pine Mountain's like the biggest ridge line south of the Appalachians or something like that, south of Atlanta, I think. So yeah, we're going to cross over Pine Mountain, and we'll go downhill on the other side. It's like a roller coaster. Really, it really just is. It's just constantly up and down, up and down. Let's see, we're doing yeah, we're down to 11. I'm telling you, I'm really impressed with like how close these trains kind of run. I did take a few coal trains down to Waycross T-Series coal trains, so it reminds me a lot of that. It absolutely does. All right, sorry, I had to take a sip of my drink here. Always have to have a Coke in the morning, start your day off right. We're drifting down into a little town called Woodland. We got approach medium on the distant to Woodland, so we'd basically, in real life, we call it T17126, got approach medium distant to Woodland, 4846 south out. I never said CSX T4846. I think they have to now, and I think we were kind of supposed to back in the day, but I never did. The only time I ever recall a reporting mark of the locomotive was if it was foreign road or something like that. But otherwise, I felt like it was pretty much implied that it was going to be a CSX engine, right? But either way, that's how I call them. They weren't, they didn't harp on us too much about that back then. As long as you called something, they didn't really care. So going by the DD, a little road crossing there, and then the northbound distant to Manchester. So we're going in the hole here at Woodland. Going in Woodland. So basically, you go over the hill, you go over Pine Mountain at Dunn Gap, and then you go downhill 1% grade, and it works out perfect. When you get to Woodland, it flattens out. Like the siding is on this little flat shelf, and then as soon as you get past the south end, it goes back to 1% again. But we're gonna be meeting someone here. Yeah, when you drop down that 1% into Woodland, we only did 30 the whole way, but you have to have your train under control. Like you need to, we grabbed some air, and then we did use a little dynamic to go into the siding here. Yeah, we are in dynamics, just very light, just to kind of, we used it to slow us down to 25, because even though we had an approach medium, that's going to be like a T108, that's a Boswick empty. Even though it said approach medium, which is 30 mile an hour, the siding's only good for 25. So that's like a large majority of our signal sidings back then were only good for 25. Even though we got like an approach medium, medium clear in, medium clear out, or medium approach, whatever. They were only 25. So yeah, we're meeting this Bostwick empty. Those were such good jobs. The empty coal trains, I love those things. They were little rockets. They really were, because we had two AC 4400s on the head end, had tons of horsepower for it, and we could run with them both online. That was nice. Towards the end, or before I left, they started harping on us about fuel, and they said, you gotta shut one down. You gotta shut the bottom engine down. You can only, it's an empty coal train, you only need one engine, which really, really sucked in, because it drug everywhere. Like everywhere you went, it drug. We're coming around to the south end of Woodland here. Got a few road crossings here. Pretty much the way it was, guys. Like it absolutely, the signal, the doll arm, the little blue light, it's going to be a doll arm, means that there's a track that intervenes between the signal and the track governed by the signal. So got a medium clear out on the dwarf down here. You could kind of see it a little bit. So we're rolling right out. We got a little power. Yeah, we got a little power right now, and we're gonna pull her out of the siding, and then I think what I do is go into dynamic, because you come out of Woodland, you go downhill a little bit, and then it kind of, I think it kind of flattens out a little bit, or has a little bit of a knot, and then it drops down for the big grade. So dynamic, like I said, I'm an air guy. I just love running air on these routes, and it seems like to me, like I said, I'm no expert. I don't know much about current operations, but it kind of seems like to me nowadays they really demonize the use of air. They don't want these guys using air, or they want them using air as little as possible. They want them to rely on the dynamics, and I think that's just, that is, they're killing the art of running a train, right, and using air, because that's a big part of it. To me, like when you use dynamics, especially when you're on a route that has a lot of like quickly changing grades as far as up and down, like going down and then right back up, there's some delay with dynamics. Like you have to come all the way back out, and then you have to wait, you have to pause, and then go into power and all that kind of stuff. So there's a delay. When you use air, you've got the throttle when you need it to come back up on the uphill side, is the way I look at it. So I like that, especially like if you're going downhill and you're going right back uphill on in game. I like to wipe the throttle, that way you can kind of outrun the slack a little bit as you're going back uphill. So but yeah, I feel like it's kind of a lost art nowadays as far as like truly running a train. Like they're getting away from it. They really are. I don't think it's good what they're doing, but what do I know, right? So we're still in light dynamics. We're staying in light dynamics to hold that 25 coming out of the siding. We're pulling out of the siding. You see our counters going. We're 2,500 feet out. We could have used some air and drug it out with power. That was the thing. We're down at the bottom of the grade now. We're coming up to the big laser creek. Some of the guys used to call it big Liza. Yeah, go around the curve here. The grade kind of flattens out here. We'll go over the creek, a big bridge over the creek, and there will be a little bit of a knot on the other side of the bridge, and then back down, and then we got to start our big climb up into Talbotton, which is another really super brutal grade. I think it's It's comparable to Persico, maybe a little worse because of reverse curves, but you see, we just let go of the air. Are we in the 40? It looks like we are. It looks like we're in the 40 right now. I can't remember. But basically, we're pulling over this little knot. We're in this flat area, and we're going to open up the throttle pretty good because I want to try to get a good run to the Talbotton up that grade. It's 1% grade. It's got multiple curves. And another cool aspect of Run 8 is that the curves actually add resistance to your train. So if you're on a 1% ascending grade, you see we're starting to open the throttle a little bit, going up to number 8. If you're on a 1% ascending grade on a straightaway, you're going to run a little faster than if you were going through a curve, just like real life. It's exactly like, this is as close as you can get to running a real life train. I'll just tell you right now, there's nothing else even remotely close to this as far as what it's like to really run a train. And I know a lot of people throw off on the graphics, you know, and I really truly feel like if you let the graphics of a game determine whether or not you enjoy it, you're really doing yourself a disservice. You really just are. Graphics do not make a good game. You know, I've played a lot of games that had amazing graphics that were absolute crap. You know, so let's just face it, that's just the way it is. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good or bad game. It is what it is. But it is exactly as close to the real thing as you can get. This is the closest I've been to railroading since I left 20 years ago. So yeah, we're running pretty hard here. We're running hard to try to make this climb into Talbotton. Talbotton's the one that kind of scares me a little bit at 0.7 HPT. Like, I feel like if you're gonna stall, you might do it on the climb into Talbotton, that's for sure. We're gonna run a little fast on this. We're gonna run a little fast. Speed limit's 40. We're up to 41. I think we might have gotten a little faster. You know, speed, I remember working with one old head engineer. He was like 30 years under his belt, close to it. He pretty much ran 3 over everywhere. It didn't matter. 3 over everywhere. If it's 50, we're doing 53. It was 35, we're doing 38. But he was a damn good engineer. Like, so incredibly good. It was like he could do it in his sleep, like it's second nature, right? Like, it just, but he's done it for 30 years, so he knew. And he started back in the old days when they had, you know, a caboose, and when you had a caboose on the bottom was a different kind of running because you had, you know, a couple of guys back there that you could very well kill running the slack in and out of your train, right? So you had to give them an easy ride back there. It's why they did a lot of stretch braking and power braking and stuff like that. Come by a distant to Talbotton. Got approach on a distant Talbotton. So 48, 46 south out. Yeah, we're into the meat and potatoes of the grade here. We're doing 13, so we're doing all right. I think that 43 kind of set us up for the grade a little bit here. You see, now we're down to 10. We've done going through a couple. We've got a couple of curves dragging against us on the grade here, and it's done pulled us down to 10. I think we may have gotten down to 9 at some point. I may have cut that part out though. Ah, Coke is good, man. That's good. Love Coke in the morning. Going around to the little overhead bridge here. The great scene. I love this scene in game. It's one of my favorites in game, with the bridge and the kudzu on the banks and the trees and the bushes. It's pretty much like it was. Like, you know, nothing is going to be like 100%, but it's all about the feel. Does it feel like it was in real life? Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely does. It's pretty dang close visually too. Like, it really just is. It's very close to it. Grade lesson. I think the grade lessens a little bit right here, so not quite as bad. It looks like it's like I said, I can't quite make it out. Maybe about 0.89 or something. 0.9. It's a good 1% grade though overall. So yeah, we'll go under this bridge and then up and around another curve, I think. And then we'll be looking at the south end of Talbotton. It's really nice. So I like the code lines over there on the right. You got the one off in the distance is kind of a little janky. It's, you know, not in service anymore. They haven't used code lines in forever, right? Like that's old technology. That was even old technology from when I was working, but they were still there. They didn't take them down. You know, the crazy thing is, like, you see pictures of railroad from like the 70s and the 80s, and the right-of-way was so much more maintained than it is even when I did it. Like it was really clear of brush and stuff like that. Like these big, beautiful right-of-ways that they had. All right, so we're still climbing pretty hard through another curve. This curve's kind of like they make you they make you wonder if you're gonna make it or not. Curves are what's gonna get you, right? Like the straightaways are nice. If you get on a good straightaway, I kind of relax a little bit, but the curves are what kind of make you tense up a little bit. Like, are we gonna make it or not? And we are. We're at 11. We've gotten up to 11 mile an hour now, so we're doing good. Another thing I want to mention, going into Persico Hill, we got the traction motor overheating warning. And I forgot to mention this earlier. I should have. Traction motor overheating on AC units was something it never even crossed my mind. It was never a concern or worry. All right, here we are. Got a restricting into Talbotton. We're meeting another train. I'm not sure who we're meeting here right now. We'll see in a second. Yeah, I think that getting that warning going up Persico Hill seems a little bit off to me. I don't think it should have gotten that hot. I don't ever remember getting a traction motor overheat on any of our coal trains, and all our coal trains ran about 11 or 12 mile an hour on the big grades. I don't ever remember getting that on an AC unit. So yeah, we're meeting an auto rack here. We're meeting an auto rack at Talbotton. I think it's 214. I think it's 214 that ran Baldwin to Louisville back then. It's a completely different train now, but it was Baldwin to Louisville back then. Another good job. I used to love getting 214. That was a good one to run. So yeah, the traction motor overheat, that was never a thing. I don't ever remember like sitting looking at my display and stressing that, like, are we going to make it because like that was never a thing. I don't ever remember seeing that warning. I don't ever remember like traction motor temps being an issue. Like we just ran, you know. So yeah, we're in the siding here at Talbotton, went in on a restricting. So we've come out of the power just a little bit. And, you know, on one of these control sidings, you know, a non-bonded siding, you go into a restricted, you got to be able to stop within half range of vision. And, you know, we're kind of easing in there a little bit because you never know. They could throw a stick man out on you or whatever to get you to stop. So, yeah, that's definitely a thing. Got a few crossings here in town, got to blow for. It brings back memories. It absolutely, it brings back a lot of memories. I wasn't always an F2 guy. An F2 pool to Birmingham, that was like home to me. I went through my hometown going to Birmingham. I grew up in that area. I wasn't very familiar with Central and South Georgia, so going down to Waycross was always a little bit foreign to me. You see, we're going around this curve there, so we come out of the power a little bit just in case. We're kind of role-playing this out like the real thing, you know, because you got to be able to stop within half the range of vision, right? So, yeah, I was an F2 guy. I went to Birmingham way more than I ever did to Waycross. I was very fortunate. I had a good bit of seniority under me after I hired out like 40 people. So I stood for some really good jobs. Towards the end, the pool jobs to Birmingham. I think the one regret I have is that I didn't take the long pool to Jacksonville. If I have any regrets for my railroading career, I should have done that. I did stand for it a few times before I left, but I didn't go down there. So yeah, we're getting ready to pull out of the siding here at Talbotton. We got a medium clear out. Yeah, and there's a hill. There's another knot here at the south end of Talbotton we got to go over. So you go up over the south end and then back down. Not too bad though. It's just a little rise there. Going for another little crossing here, another little dirt road crossing. Very cool. Very, very cool. Man, I'm telling you though, like, when you're on these coal trains, you don't want to stop. You did not want to stop under any circumstances. There were certain areas that you definitely did not want to stop because you'd probably never get going again, but you definitely wouldn't want to stop at the south or at the north end of Talbotton. Like, you would want to keep going towards the south end. You're going by a signal, another doll arm. Man, those were everywhere back in the day. I think they're pretty much all gone now. I think they're all gone. They were very unique. There's another medium clear out. So they're restricting in, but we can do 25 out. We can do a medium out. Like we're picking the sand off. So yeah, we got no need to sand anymore. We don't want to run it out, right? Got a long trip ahead of us. There we go, out of the siding. We'll keep pulling on it. Yeah, eventually we're going to take this train to Fitzgerald. This is going to be our trip. Is going to be basically we're like recreating the Atlanta to Fitzgerald run. So pretty nice trip. I think this is pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. I didn't want to do videos where you just sit and run for hours. I want to make it more entertaining than just that, right? I think it would appeal to more people. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Leave me a comment down below if you have Run 8. What do you think of the Fitzgerald Sub, that sort of thing. Love all of you, and we'll catch you on the rails next time. Peace!